Have you ever opened your mailbox and found a letter that completely changed your plans? Most people think tomorrow will be just like today. They believe the rules stay the same, the process stays the same, and life keeps moving exactly as it always has. But that isn't how the real world works. Rules change quietly, systems change without warning, and the people who pay attention are always in a better position than the people who don't. If you were born before 1961, today's video is especially important for you. A recent service update has changed the way many people may experience upcoming communications, and waiting until that official letter arrives could leave you confused, frustrated, or scrambling for answers. Knowledge has always been one of the greatest forms of protection. The more you know before something happens, the more confident and prepared you become. Too many people assume someone else will explain everything when the time comes. That's a risky way to live. The smartest people don't wait for problems to knock on their door. They prepare before the challenge arrives. They understand that one small change in a rule can lead to unexpected delays, missed opportunities, or unnecessary stress. Preparation isn't fear, it's confidence. It's taking control of what you can instead of reacting after it's too late. That's exactly why you're here today. You don't need complicated language or confusing legal terms. You need clear, simple information that helps you understand what's changing, why it matters, and what steps you may want to consider before your next letter reaches your mailbox. A few minutes of attention today could save you hours of frustration later. So don't click away because what you're about to hear could affect your next interaction with these services sooner than you expect. Stay with me until the very end, and let's make sure you're informed, prepared, and one step ahead before that letter ever arrives. Something important is happening right now, and the surprising part is that most people have no idea it's even taking place. Not because the information is hidden, but because changes like these rarely arrive with loud announcements or flashing headlines. They happen quietly, one update at a time, while millions of people continue with their daily routines believing everything is exactly the way it has always been. That's how many people get caught off guard. They assume that if something significant were changing, someone would personally warn them in advance. Unfortunately, that's not always how it works. If you were born before 1961, this deserves your attention. The way certain services operate has changed, and even a small adjustment can make a big difference when you're expecting important information or dealing with official matters. Many people don't realize that what worked a year ago may not work the same way today. They continue following old habits because they've never had a reason to question them. Then one day, an unexpected letter arrives or a familiar process suddenly feels different, and they're left wondering what happened. The truth is that rules and procedures are updated all the time. Sometimes those updates are designed to improve efficiency. Sometimes they're meant to modernize systems. Whatever the reason, the result is the same. You need to know what's changing before it affects you. Waiting until the last minute often creates unnecessary stress, especially when important deadlines or decisions are involved. This isn't about creating fear or making anyone panic, it's about staying informed. There's a big difference between worrying about the future and preparing for it. When you understand what's changing ahead of time, you have the chance to ask questions, gather the right information, and avoid confusion later. That's a much better position to be in than opening an official letter and trying to figure everything out under pressure. Think about how quickly the world has changed over the past few years. Banking has changed, healthcare has changed, technology has changed, government services have changed too. Many tasks that once happened in person now involve different steps, different requirements, or different ways of communicating. These updates don't always feel dramatic when they're announced, but they can have a real impact on everyday people. That's why paying attention today matters more than assuming everything will stay the same tomorrow. A few minutes spent understanding what's new can make future decisions much easier. Being informed gives you confidence. It helps you avoid unnecessary surprises and allows you to respond calmly instead of reacting in confusion. The people who stay updated are often the ones who experience fewer problems because they already know what to expect before anything officially lands in their mailbox. If you were born before 1961, today is one of those moments when paying attention can make a real difference. You may have spent decades working hard, raising a family, building a career, and planning carefully for this stage of life. You've earned the right to expect that important services will work the way you're familiar with. But the reality is that systems continue to evolve, and sometimes those changes happen faster than people realize. What was true just a short time ago may no longer be the case today. That's why this update deserves your attention. It isn't just another routine announcement that you can put aside and read later. It has the potential to affect how you receive important information, how you respond to official notices, and how smoothly your future interactions with government services go. Many people assume that because they've handled these processes before, they already know what to expect. That confidence can quickly turn into confusion if new rules or procedures are introduced without them realizing it. One of the biggest mistakes people make is believing that change only affects someone else. They think, I've been through this before, or nothing has changed for me in years. But that's exactly why updates catch so many people by surprise. Rules don't ask whether you're ready. They don't wait until it's convenient. They simply become the new standard, and everyone is expected to follow them. Imagine receiving an official letter in the mail and discovering that the process you're familiar with has been updated. Instead of feeling prepared, you're suddenly trying to understand new instructions, new requirements, or new timelines. That situation can create unnecessary stress, especially when the information is important and requires a timely response. A little knowledge beforehand can make the entire experience much easier. The goal isn't to make you worry about what's coming, it's to make sure you're informed before anything arrives. Being prepared gives you confidence. It allows you to understand what you're reading instead of feeling overwhelmed by unfamiliar language or unexpected changes. When you know what to expect, you're far more likely to make informed decisions, avoid simple mistakes, and handle every step with clarity instead of uncertainty. One of the biggest mistakes people make is treating official letters like they can wait. Life gets busy, and it's easy to place an envelope on the kitchen table, promising yourself you'll read it later. A day turns into a week turns into a month, and before you know it, you've forgotten it was ever there. Many people don't realize that some of the most important information they'll ever receive comes in the form of a simple letter. It doesn't arrive with flashing lights or loud alarms. It shows up quietly, and what you do next can make a bigger difference than you might expect. For many Americans, especially those born before 1961, official notices often contain updates that require attention within a certain period of time. Sometimes they're asking you to review information, sometimes they're requesting documents or confirming details. Other times they're simply explaining a new process or informing you about changes that could affect future interactions. Whatever the purpose, ignoring the letter or delaying your response can create problems that could have been avoided with just a few minutes of attention. It's human nature to assume that if something is truly important, someone will call, send another reminder, or give you extra time. But that's not always how these systems work. In many cases, the responsibility falls on you to read the information carefully, understand what it says, and take any action that's needed. Missing a deadline because the envelope sat unopened isn't something anyone wants to experience, especially when the solution could have been so simple. That's why being proactive matters. Instead of waiting until you're forced to react, make it a habit to stay informed and deal with important mail as soon as it arrives. Even if the letter doesn't require immediate action, reading it early gives you time to ask questions, gather information, and avoid making rushed decisions under pressure. There's a certain confidence that comes from knowing exactly what's expected instead of guessing. The people who avoid unnecessary stress are usually not the ones with the fewest responsibilities. They're the ones who understand that small actions taken at the right time often prevent much bigger problems later. Opening one letter, reading it carefully, and understanding what it means may seem like a simple task, but it can save you confusion, delays, and frustration when every day counts. There is something powerful about being prepared before everyone else. It changes the way you respond to challenges because you're no longer reacting out of confusion or pressure. You're making decisions with confidence because you already know what's happening. That's why staying informed isn't just about gathering information, it's about giving yourself the advantage of time. When you know about an important change before it directly affects you, you have the opportunity to understand it, think about it, and decide what steps, if any, you need to take. Too often, people wait until the last possible moment. They don't pay attention to updates because they assume they have plenty of time. Then an official letter arrives, a deadline is closer than expected, or a new process catches them by surprise. Suddenly, what could have been handled calmly becomes a stressful situation. The pressure doesn't come from the change itself, it comes from not knowing about it in advance. If you were born before 1961, you've probably learned one lesson over the years. Preparation makes life easier. Whether it was planning for retirement, managing a household, raising children, or building a career, success rarely came from waiting until the last minute. It came from thinking ahead. The same mindset applies here. Taking a little time now to understand what's changing can save you from unnecessary confusion later. Being informed also gives you the freedom to ask questions while there's still time to get clear answers. Instead of rushing to figure everything out after receiving an important notice, you can approach the situation with a calm mind and a better understanding of what to expect. That confidence is valuable because it allows you to focus on making good decisions instead of worrying about whether you've missed something important. Another benefit of staying ahead is that you're less likely to be influenced by rumors or misinformation. When changes happen, it's common for people to share incomplete stories or assumptions that create even more confusion. By learning the facts early, you can separate reliable information from speculation and avoid unnecessary concern. Knowledge has a way of replacing uncertainty with confidence, and confidence makes every decision easier when important matters require your attention. At first glance, a small rule change may not seem like a big deal. Most people hear the words policy update or procedure change and immediately assume it won't affect them. They think it's just another administrative adjustment that only matters to someone else. But that's often how the biggest surprises begin. It's rarely the large dramatic changes that catch people off guard. More often, it's the small details that quietly reshape the way everyday things work. A single adjustment to a process can change when you receive information, how you respond to it, or what steps you're expected to take next. If you don't know those details in advance, you could find yourself following instructions that are no longer current. That can lead to unnecessary delays, extra paperwork, confusion, or time spent trying to correct a mistake that could have been avoided. None of these problems happen because people are careless. They happen because people assume the rules are still the same as they were before. If you were born before 1961, you've seen this happen many times throughout your life. Technology has changed, banking has changed, healthcare has changed, communication has changed. Each time, the adjustments may have seemed small in the beginning, but over time, they completely changed the way people handled everyday tasks. Government services are no different. They continue to evolve, and even minor updates can influence the experience of millions of people. That's why it's important not to dismiss a change simply because it sounds minor. Sometimes one sentence added to a policy or one updated requirement can make the difference between a smooth experience and a frustrating one. Understanding those changes before they affect you puts you in a much stronger position. Instead of reacting after something goes wrong, you're already prepared for what comes next. The people who stay informed are usually the ones who avoid unnecessary headaches. They don't assume yesterday's process will automatically work tomorrow. They take a few moments to learn what's new, adjust when necessary, and move forward with confidence. That approach doesn't require special skills or expert knowledge. It simply requires the willingness to pay attention before a small change turns into a much bigger problem than anyone expected. Let's be honest, most people don't enjoy trying to understand official updates. The language often feels complicated, filled with technical terms, long explanations, and details that seem difficult to follow. After reading just a few lines, it's easy to feel overwhelmed and think, I'll deal with this later. But the problem is that later doesn't always come until the information becomes urgent. That's exactly why this video is different. The goal isn't to bury you in complicated explanations. The goal is to make everything simple, clear, and easy to understand. You shouldn't have to spend hours searching through documents or trying to figure out what a policy really means. Important information should be explained in a way that makes sense to everyday people, especially those who simply want to know how a change could affect them. That's what we're going to do together. We'll take each important point, break it down into plain language, and explain what it means without unnecessary confusion or complicated wording. If you were born before 1961, you've probably seen how quickly information has become more complex over the years. Many services now use online systems, digital notices, updated procedures, and new ways of communicating. While these changes are intended to improve efficiency, they can sometimes make things feel more confusing for people who are used to a different process. There's nothing wrong with wanting straightforward answers instead of complicated explanations. This is about helping you feel informed, not overwhelmed. Every important update should leave you with more confidence, not more questions. That's why we'll focus on the facts that matter most and explain them step by step. You won't need to guess what something means or worry that you've misunderstood an important detail. The information will be presented in a practical way that respects your time and makes it easier to follow along. Many people avoid reading official notices because they expect them to be difficult to understand. That hesitation is completely understandable, but it can also lead to misinformation and unnecessary stress. When someone takes the time to explain things in simple words, everything becomes easier to process. Instead of feeling frustrated by complicated language, you can focus on what really matters, understanding what's changing, why it matters, and how you can be ready when the time comes. Before you move on to something else, give yourself a few more minutes because what you're about to hear could be more valuable than you realize. In today's fast-moving world, it's easy to think that one more update or one more announcement can wait until later, but sometimes the information we postpone is the very information that would have made our lives much easier. A few minutes of attention today can prevent hours of confusion tomorrow, and that's exactly why it's worth staying with this video from beginning to end. If you were born before 1961, there's a good chance you'll receive important communications that reflect these updated rules and procedures. The last thing anyone wants is to open an official letter and feel uncertain about what it means or what they're expected to do next. That kind of uncertainty creates unnecessary stress, especially when deadlines or important decisions are involved. Being prepared ahead of time allows you to read those letters with confidence instead of concern. Every part of this video has been designed to help you understand what's changing in simple language. There's no need to worry about complicated terms or confusing explanations. We'll focus on the practical details that matter most and explain them in a way that's easy to follow. The goal is to make sure you finish this video feeling informed, prepared, and confident about what you may see in future communications. Many people don't realize how valuable preparation can be until they're already facing a problem. By then, they're trying to find answers under pressure, searching for information at the last minute, and hoping they haven't missed an important step. That situation is stressful for anyone. Taking the time to learn now gives you the opportunity to avoid that experience altogether. Knowledge has always been one of the strongest tools you can have. It doesn't eliminate every challenge, but it helps you respond with confidence instead of uncertainty. When you know what's changing before it affects you, you're in a much better position to make informed decisions, ask the right questions, and handle every situation calmly. That's why every minute you spend watching today is an investment in your own peace of mind, helping you stay one step ahead before that official letter ever reaches your mailbox, and before small questions become bigger concerns that could have been avoided with the right information at the right time.